Hey everyone, and welcome back to IQD Dinar News, your trusted source for authentic Iraqi dinar updates and analysis. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss critical updates that could impact your holdings. Now, before we dive into today's numbers, I want you to ask yourself something. Have you checked the exchange rate today? Because if you haven't, you might be surprised by what's happening in the Iraqi currency markets right now. The US dollar just made a move that every dinar holder needs to know about, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what this means for you, your investments, and the broader Iraqi economy. Here's the thing that most people don't realize: small movements in exchange rates aren't just numbers on a screen. They represent real economic forces, government policies, and market sentiment that can signal bigger trends ahead. And today's update from Shafaq News, one of Iraq's most reliable news agencies, gives us some fascinating insights into what's currently happening in Baghdad and Erbil's currency markets. So whether you're holding dinars as an investment, conducting business in Iraq, or simply trying to understand the Iraqi economy better, stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just what happened today, but why it matters and what it could mean moving forward. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with the hard facts. According to Shafaq News Agency's latest market survey, the US dollar opened Tuesday's trading session higher in Iraq. And when I say higher, we're looking at the dollar trading around 147,500 Iraqi dinars per 100 US dollars. Now let me break down exactly what we're seeing across different markets in Iraq, because this is where it gets interesting. In Baghdad, specifically at the Al-Kifa and Al-Harithia exchanges, which are two of the most important currency exchange centers in the capital, the dollar was trading at 147,650 dinars per $100. Now, compare that to the previous session where we saw 147,450 dinars per $100. That's an increase of 200 dinars per $100. Now, some of you might be thinking, that's not a huge jump. And you're right, but here's what's important: the direction of the movement and the consistency across markets. Now, here's something that many dinar holders don't fully understand, but absolutely should: the difference between buying and selling rates at exchange shops. This is called the spread, and it tells us a lot about market liquidity and demand. In Baghdad's exchange shops, the selling price, meaning what you would pay to buy US dollars, stood at 148,250 dinars per $100. Meanwhile, the buying price, what you'd receive if you were selling your US dollars for dinars, was 147,250 dinars per $100. That's a spread of 1,000 dinars per $100. This spread represents the exchange shop's margin, but it also reflects market volatility and risk. The wider the spread, generally speaking, the more uncertainty there is in the market. Now let's shift our focus to Erbil, the capital of the Kurdistan region. This is crucial because comparing Baghdad and Erbil rates gives us insight into regional economic dynamics and market integration. In Erbil, the selling prices stood at 147,650 dinars per $100, while buying prices were at 147,550 dinars per $100. Notice something interesting here. The spread in Erbil is much tighter, only 100 dinars per $100 compared to Baghdad's 1,000 dinar spread. What does this tell us? It could indicate several things: potentially better market liquidity in Erbil's currency markets, less volatility, or different regulatory environments. For investors and dinar holders, these regional differences matter because they show you're not dealing with a monolithic market. So the big question everyone wants answered: why did the dollar strengthen against the dinar today? While Shafaq News gives us the numbers, understanding the why requires us to look at broader economic factors. Several factors typically influence the IQD USD exchange rate. First, there's oil revenue. Iraq's economy is heavily dependent on oil exports, which are priced in US dollars. When oil prices fluctuate, or when there are changes in Iraq's oil production and export volumes, this impacts dollar availability in the Iraqi market. Second, we have the Central Bank of Iraq's currency auctions and monetary policy. The CBI regularly holds dollar auctions to manage liquidity and stabilize the exchange rate. Any changes in auction amounts or procedures can create ripples in the street market rates. Third, there's import demand. Iraq imports a significant portion of its consumer goods, and importers need US dollars to pay foreign suppliers. Seasonal changes in import demand or disruptions in trade can affect dollar demand and therefore exchange rates. Fourth, regional stability and political developments play a role. Iraq's currency markets are sensitive to both domestic political events and regional geopolitical dynamics. And finally, we can't ignore speculative activity. Currency traders and investors making bets on future exchange rate movements can create short-term volatility. Now, let's talk about what this really means for you, especially if you're holding Iraqi dinars as an investment or for business purposes. If you're holding physical dinars and we're planning to exchange them for dollars, today's rates mean you'd receive slightly fewer dollars per dinar compared to the previous session. The dollar has appreciated, which means the dinar has depreciated in relative terms. For those conducting business in Iraq, if you're bringing dollars into Iraq to exchange for dinars, you're getting slightly more dinars per dollar. Conversely, if you're trying to repatriate profits from Iraq to the US, you're getting slightly fewer dollars for your dinars. For long-term investors in Iraqi dinars, the key question is always about trend direction. Is this a temporary fluctuation or the beginning of a longer-term trend? One data point doesn't make a trend, which is why following reliable sources like Shafaq News regularly is so important. One thing I want to emphasize here is the relative stability we're seeing. Yes, there was an increase, but we're talking about movements that are fairly modest in the grand scheme of currency markets. This suggests that despite various challenges, Iraq's currency markets are maintaining a degree of stability. The fact that we're seeing consistent reporting from established exchanges like Al-Kifa and Al-Harithia with rates that are relatively close between Baghdad and Erbil indicates a functioning, interconnected market system. All right, let's wrap this up and bring it all together. Today's update from Shafaq News Agency gives us a clear snapshot of where the Iraqi dinar stands against the US dollar. We saw the dollar trading at 147.6050 dinars per $100 at Baghdad's major exchanges, up from 147.4050 in the previous session. We examined the buy-sell spreads in both Baghdad and Erbil, and we discussed the various factors that influence these exchange rates. Here's what I want you to take away from today's update. First, small movements in exchange rates are normal and expected. Currency markets fluctuate daily based on supply and demand dynamics, and today's movement, while notable, is within the range of normal market activity. Second, the source of your information matters tremendously. Shafaq News Agency is a legitimate, established Iraqi news organization with actual market reporters surveying real exchanges. This isn't speculation or rumor. This is authenticated market data, and that's exactly what we focus on here at IQD Dinar News. Third, understanding the full picture means looking at multiple data points, official exchange rates, street market rates, buy versus sell spreads, and regional differences between cities like Baghdad and Erbil. All of these pieces together give you a much more complete understanding than any single number could. For those of you holding Iraqi dinars, whether for investment purposes, business operations, or personal reasons, staying informed with accurate, timely information is your best strategy. The currency markets don't sleep, and neither should your vigilance in tracking authentic updates. Remember, successful currency holding isn't about panic selling or panic buying based on daily fluctuations. It's about understanding long-term trends, economic fundamentals, and having access to reliable information that lets you make informed decisions. If you found this breakdown valuable, please hit that like button. It really helps us reach more people who need authentic Iraqi dinar news. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're committed to bringing you regular updates from verified Iraqi news sources, always with the context and analysis you need to understand what's really happening. Drop a comment below and let me know, are you watching the IQD USD rate for investment purposes, business reasons, or something else? I'd love to hear from you and understand what specific topics you'd like us to cover in future videos. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, authentic information is your most valuable asset in the currency markets. This is IQD Dinar News signing off.